Greetings, everybody, and welcome back to the Unpopular Opinion Podcast with me, Ross Hepburn, and Louis Harper. Now, 2 weeks ago, we did a podcast pretty much expressing our feelings on the last season, and particularly the last episode of Game of Thrones. It had a pretty massive impact on everybody. We all shared our opinions about it. Even us two got pretty vocal about it. Louis got more vocal than me. But apart from that, we pretty much shared a very open opinion that we were very disappointed with Game of Thrones. In the time that it came out from that, more news has been coming out about Game of Thrones, particularly with the actor Kit Harrington, who played Jon Snow. Kit Harrington has essentially put himself into rehab to help with managing levels of stress, because he is literally just burnt out or stuff like that. But it has came to the attention that he's gone into rehab to help with stress and every other anxiety that comes with it. So, how did you take to the news when you heard that he was going into rehab?
It's always sad when this happens. I think when it comes to Kit Harrington, I don't think it's unfair to say Game of Thrones was his career, maybe even his life. We look at his IMDb page, for example. Obviously, Game of Thrones is the one that stands out. He's been in little things, but never anything to the success of Game of Thrones. Also, he's been doing Game of Thrones for, 8 years?
8 years now, something like that.
You do something for that long, and then it just suddenly stops to a halt. And yeah, it's always going to have effects on anyone. So I think maybe the other cast members are suffering from something too. Maybe not to the level he is, but I think they're all going to be going through a bit of a rough time now, just because it was such a big part of their lives.
Yeah, because the thing is about this wasn't just for us it was a casual thing. Like, it was 8 series, the different episodes or whatever. We can easily turn it off and on again, watch it at any point, and walk away. That was it for our days.
Yeah.
But we know this from working on film and making videos ourselves. When they were working on Game of Thrones, every day was, we'd be traveling here to do this location. You'd be getting up at this time. You'd be doing this. He met his wife on the set of Game of Thrones, for crying out loud, So this was a pretty big thing for him. This was more than just, a standard paycheck job to help with the rent. This was his life. This was literally, he was the main lead role, in essentially the biggest television show in the history of television that we know of just now.
Well, I think one of the things he said he struggled with was when Jon Snow became the main character and dealing with the pressure of that, especially when Jon was like a big cliffhanger at the end of the show. So obviously he had, I don't know if it's anxiety or some people are saying it's imposter syndrome, but it sounds like he had a hard time dealing with the pressure of just how big the show was.
Yes, and in the article that you showed me just now, I'm reading about how he's not good at taking reviews and criticism, because at that time when Jon Snow became the focus, everybody's opinion of it was pretty much, why is he the main focus? He's not that interesting. He's pretty boring.
Well, I said that in our Game of Thrones video, that I did find him quite dull compared to the other characters. You compare him to like early Tyrion, Tywin Lannister, Littlefinger, every Lannister, Cersei, Varys, and he just doesn't quite have the same personality. I don't think that's the actor's fault. I just think it's the way that character's written. And you need characters like that, but maybe that has affected him.
Even the side characters in Game of Thrones, some of the side characters are even better than the mains. You look at the Hound, you look at Tormund, you look at Brienne of Tarth, you look at, Davos, you look at all these guys.
Yeah.
They're all characters rich with something, But you need to have a guy who's pretty vacant in order for you to follow as a main character, because that's a character who you have to relate to the most.
I think the problem with Jon Snow as a character, because we've had the sort of, the brutish and the stubborn characters before. Ned Stark, and his son Robb, they were similar characters to Jon Snow for me, but they always stood out a bit, because Robb Stark he had a rough side to him. Like, I remember when one of the scenes, his mother goes against his camp, and you can just see he hates it, and he makes mistakes, and he's just a really entertaining character. And then Ned Stark was just his loyalty that got him killed.
Yeah, it was his loyalty. That was.
And Jon Snow just seems like a sort of mellow in between point of the two, and that's one of the problems I had with him as a character. But yeah, it's a real shame what's happened to him, because this has been his life. I mean, like you said, we've enjoyed the show for 8 years, but he's lived it, and it's just a real shame.
Would you say the negative fan criticism that has been happening now, because it's been so open, do you think, as well as the reviews that he's scared of getting, as well as the opinions about this show, particularly with its finale and ending, do you think that's affected him in some way?
Well, I did read somewhere that after season 4 he stopped looking at criticism, but he's got to have heard something, and when a show has ended as controversially and as poorly as Game of Thrones has, I think any actor who says it hasn't affected them is either made of really strong stuff or they're lying, because if you played a character for that long and then people are just saying that was a terrible end to this character's arc, it's going to affect you.
Well, yeah, especially when you've been playing that part for the better part of 8 years as well. And like Kit Harrington, he's gone off and just said the people who didn't get the ending are, just didn't get it. And it's like, no, you don't get it. Like, these were characters that they have spent time watching and fallen in love with and being connected with for 8 years. They're disappointed. They're heartbroken. And your heart has broken too, because you've quite clearly lost what it was that made you love that character in the first place. And you can tell it. I mean, you brought this up last time. The actors were doing as well as they were given, And we've seen footage now of actors at press screenings, at interviews, at red carpet moments, and they're just kind of like, yeah, it's good, it's really good.
Everyone thought that was a joke, but then obviously it turned out they were right.
Yeah, they were right all along, and you can't help but feel really bad for them, And Kit Harrington is just the example of this, And the one thing that really pissed me off about it was that there was like those like closer pick me up, take a break magazines, which I call, anxiety on a cover. Like, they had this thing where hero Kit Harrington, Jon Snow, sent to rehab. It was like, no, he's still a hero. What? Just because he's asking for help? Just because he's just like packed in by everything, Like stress for me, like the biggest trigger for me in terms of stress or anything like that is change, And suddenly
there's a huge change in his life.
A huge change. This is 8 years of, being a character and being around the same faces over and over again,
That's the thing. A lot of these people were probably his friends that he's been seeing every day on set for 8 years, and then suddenly he's not going to see them anymore. It's like a breakup in a way.
Yeah, and also, again, I said about, like, let's be honest, he got married. He met his wife on Game of Thrones.
Yeah, so it's always going to have a special place in his heart.
Yeah, this show means something to him. And granted, if you look at his IMDb page, there are certain things that he's done in there that are kind of like, I really have that on my CV. But Kit Harrington, he has Game of Thrones. And that's all he had,
Do you think actors should take precautions from this in the future by maybe, I don't know, working it out so they have two projects that they're passionate about instead of putting all their eggs into one basket, and when that basket falls over, suddenly they have nothing?
But it's hard to say, though, because we don't know how things are going to be. Like, nobody anticipated for Game of Thrones to be as huge as it was. I don't even think he anticipated for how big it was going to be.
Well, it's like people who get into, you could say people who get into relationships. And then they get all their happiness from this one person. And then when the relationship ends, they don't know what to do because they were so reliant on that person to give them happiness. Like he was so reliant on Game of Thrones to give him happiness, and now it's come back to bite him. I'm not saying it's necessarily his fault, but maybe it's just something to consider.
I don't know, mate. Like, not even relying on happiness because you don't like in terms of me, like, or at least anybody in that case. If you're going into a relationship and you are depending on the other person to bring you that happiness, that's a bad relationship. Yeah, be happy in a relationship, but be happy knowing that you are bringing something with this person that they're bringing something out in you, just like how you're bringing out something in them. With Game of Thrones, on the other hand, because Jon Snow because Kit Harrington before this had no real ulterior work experience apart from he got picked up after being in the production of the War Horse, the stage show, the War Horse, and he had nothing to do with that ever since then. And then you get cast in this show. It's based on a book. It's going to be this. We don't know if it's going to be this huge thing, but I'll give it a shot anyway. And he does it, and it's suddenly like he can't even leave his house without people being like, "It's Jon Snow!" Like his face is on T-shirts. There's quotes on T-shirts saying, "You know nothing, Jon Snow." There are people who dress up like him now. Like, it's more than just, okay, I'll prioritize this with something else, because what is this something else when you're in something that literally takes over the world?
Do you not think when you're an actor, you kind of have to have that in mind that might happen in some stage of your career, though? Like, if you're planning to make it big, you need to learn how to deal with the pressure and the crazy fans.
It depends, though, like, because who really plans on making it big?
Oh.
I mean, not to sound like, that Kit Harrington just got lucky, but essentially, with the exception of few cast members, they did just get lucky.
That's true. You could say Sean Bean was a recognised actor before Game of Thrones.
Mark Addy, Robert Baratheon, he was a known actor before Game of Thrones. Charles Dance, fucking hell, Charles Dance. Everybody
they were known. They weren't huge actors. Sean Bean was the one people knew because of Lord of the Rings.
But the thing is, they were known.
They were known, yeah.
Like
Jon Snow was a bit of a nobody.
They were working actors. Like the majority of the cast were just nobodies, really. You know,
Was Emilia Clarke in anything before?
not that I know of, not that I can see.
So Game of Thrones made a lot of these guys' careers.
Exactly,
So
you know.
I do get why they would be so upset that it's ending.
Yeah, and you know, like unless you're like, okay, so I follow Carice Van Houten on Instagram because, well, she's the Red Lady in Game of Thrones, and I love her. And she was doing music on the side of doing Game of Thrones. So when her character arc ended, she went to just do music as well as being a mother and a wife to Guy Pearce and his baby. God damn it, Guy Pearce, why are you so lucky? Or Sophie Turner, you know, she landed it. She got to be, you know, Jean Grey in those new X-Men movies, which I'm still surprised that they're making. like what's going on there? Or like it's things happen, you know, things change. But like when you've been a part of something that's been so huge for so long, it's hard not to be like, damn, it's no longer there anymore. This is scary, and I've got to face the big open world now. This is not like anything I'm used to before.
It sounds like he's got some form of anxiety, whether it's an imposter syndrome or maybe it leads deeper into depression. But it sounds like there's something deeper going on in there, and hopefully he gets that sorted.
I would like to see him get healthy again.
No, of course.
Because, like, at the end of the day, you know, like, it's not his fault that the show turned out the way that it did.
No.
And most of all, he wasn't bad in the show.
No, he did. It's just the way his character was written.
It was just his character. And I would like to see him go on and do other good things. Like, I don't know, like, maybe a good, like, something toned down.
It's a real shame, and I hope not. I mean, I know the writers messed up. I hope not too many of the cast hold a grudge towards them, because I know it's disappointing, but at the end of the day, grudges aren't healthy, and they need to, as much as I love Game of Thrones, they need to find new projects they're passionate about and then take it from there, and, you know.
But now they've got this beautiful thing where they've got immunity. They can get wherever they want now because they were in something that was so huge.
Yeah, hopefully.
It's kind of like the Coen Brothers theory, where after you do one Coen Brothers film, you're suddenly sent loads of scripts because if the Coen Brothers have seen something good in you, you must be doing something right. It's the same as Game of Thrones. We've seen these actors portray so much that we can actually see them want to do something else with these characters. You know?
The biggest TV show of all time. If that doesn't lead to opportunities, then
what the fuck will?
Nothing will. So.
And also, one thing, I'm going to say this now, Kit Harrington, you got off lucky. At least you weren't the poor fucker that played Joffrey Lannister.
Joffrey Baratheon.
Yeah.
He was a Lannister.
Yeah, like, that guy...
Oh, I loved him. He was great.
I feel so sorry for that guy, because he could not escape it. People were throwing things at him.
That was the same with actress who played Cersei. Like, she said people just, like, booed her in the street and stuff. So how can people not just be like, okay, this is a character, this is an actress, they're two different things. But no, some people are so stupid that they just see a person on the street and think, oh, it's that character from that TV show I watched.
Yeah. And like
Swords and Dragons.
And to go back to your thing about, you know, separating work from anything, look at Hodor. He was a DJ.
Yeah.
He still is. He just plays clubs.
Yep.
Or what about the friggin' mountain? Thor.
Yeah.
You know, the guy's strong enough to destroy this entire room with one finger. He's just the world's strongest man. He's just going to go back to Iceland, work out, and eat chicken.
Yeah.
That's all he's going to do.
Yeah. But it just goes to show you, like, Kit Harrington could be making $1 million, it was reported, per episode, and he's still being affected by things that everyone's affected by. So I think once you get your first £1 million or dollars, after that, it doesn't really mean nothing. It's just a number, isn't it?
Well, what does success mean in today's time? You know, like, I still remember a conversation that my grandfather had with me. He said, you know, don't be rich by the time you hit 20, be rich by the time you hit 40, because then you've worked for it all and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
You know? And in the case of
you probably spend it more cleverly as well.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Look at what Nicolas Cage bought, you know? Superman comics and houses and castles and dinosaur bones. That's another story for another time. But yeah, I want Kit Harrington to have a speedy recovery, and I hope that he goes on to do other things. I want to see him grow as an actor, you know? And step away from the game. I mean, it's hard to say step away from Game of Thrones because how huge it's been.
I think he's quite typecast as well. You look at the other films he's been in, and okay, aside from that terrible Silent Hill film, he was in How to Train Your Dragon, which, you know, it's a cartoon, but still sort of medieval. He's in that Pompeii film where he just looks exactly like he's Jon Snow.
Yeah.
He needs to branch out and take on different roles.
He needs to do something small. He needs to do something that will give him something that will, like, you know, grow as an actor.
He was in a Call of Duty game. That's probably where it all started. There's no no one likes Call of Duty anymore.
Yeah. I was going to make a joke saying, hey, if you're complaining about Game of Thrones now, you were in Call of Duty from the start. What the fuck are you complaining about? No, but no. Kit Harrington, I want him speedy recovery. And also, people, if you're going through any stress of any kind and it's causing you anxiety or depression of any kind, there's literally nothing wrong with asking for help. You can do it. It's okay. You know.
Hopefully, this brings the awareness of imposter syndrome out there as well, because I'd never heard of it until today. And it sounds pretty horrible.
Yeah, and for those who don't know what imposter syndrome is, it's essentially it's kind of like an anxiety where your brain is telling you you don't deserve all of this. You're a failure, and once everybody finds out that you're a hack and a failure, you're going to be ruined for the rest of your days.
It's like anxiety when you've actually made it.
It's the anxiety of success.
Where a lot of people who just maybe get ordinary anxiety, it's maybe because they haven't made it and they're anxious. Oh, I'll never make it. Whereas this is kind of the other end of the spectrum, which is really, it just goes to show you that anxiety will try to win you over time and time again, but you can beat it. Anxiety is designed to lose in a fight. If it's between you and the anxiety, you're swinging the first punch, it's already out by the second go. So I hope Kit Harrington has a speedy recovery, and I hope everything turns out well for him. And and if you can beat whatever's going on in your head, then you can beat anything. So here's hoping all the best to Jon Snow.
Fucking hell, we're like 5 episodes in and we're getting really deep. Right. All right. That's us for the Unpopular Opinion podcast this week. A quick announcement. We've moved to a new channel called Talk to the Hand, which is me, Louis, and Douglas Fender, my best friend, doing a channel of more reviews. So you'll catch more film reviews from Doug, book and film reviews from me, and what you're gonna be reviewing.
I'll probably talk about some nerdy video game stuff. So.
Yeah. So
if you're into that, subscribe.
Yeah, it's just a channel for us to really vent our opinions about things that we love and or hate, like, because our Big Mouth review's up there now, and as well as our previous episodes of the Unpopular Opinion. So that's going to be the new home of the Unpopular Opinion. And thanks to those 10 subscribers who subscribe to us for our channel. I'm sorry to see you have to move to a new channel. Things happen, I suppose. But if you like that, please subscribe to Talk to the Hand, and also follow our Facebook page, because we've still got the Facebook page, right? Like our Facebook page. And again, leave us suggestions about what you want to see us talk about next.
Absolutely. So we will see you soon.
Good night, everybody.